So in this video I want to talk about teaching the bridge, and I think the bridge is a fundamental movement because it helps us learn how to move through the hips while maintaining that stable spinal or position, of our spinal column. It's very similar to the plank variations that I taught you in the push-up video, but obviously the flip side of the coin on the other side, and it leads directly into bodyweight rows and other movements of that ilk. In the bridge, we're moving through the shoulders, we're moving through the hips, again, while keeping that relationship between the hips and the rib cage stable. So anyhow, when doing the bridge, the simplest version is obviously the one where you're laying on the floor. Your shoulders are on the floor. Your feet are flat because I want as much stability as possible. I'm not trying to concentrate on a particular muscle. It is not a glute bridge. It is just a bridge, right? So I want your toes to be spread and the weight to be evenly distributed throughout your big toe, little toe, and heel, tripod of the foot. Same way you do it when you're doing a deadlift or a squat. I want the floor is, we're going to use the floor as a source of information for our brain, right? We feel our lower back on the floor, and we feel it on the way up before we go up, and we feel it when we come down. That's letting us know that it's in the same place, right? We're learning to control. That's the whole point, learning to control the movement. We're going to use the shoulders, because again, we're not trying to isolate anything. So as I lift up, I am pulling with the abs, I am extending the hips by using my glutes to extend them, but I am also using shoulder extension. I am pressing into the ground through the palm of my hand, through my whole arm, through my shoulders. I'm using shoulder retraction, which is pushing them back into the ground. I'm trying to get a straight line here. Again, using everything to get into this nice position. As I come down, this is really where the magic happens, in my opinion. As I come down, I want to move through those hips while keeping that relationship. And I come down, and my lower back hits the ground all at once. My hips and my lower back hit the ground all at once. Of course, that's easy, right? It's not easy for everybody, but it's for a lot of people. I'll say most. It comes pretty quickly. So how do we make this more challenging? Well, I like to talk about points of contact. So as we remove points of contact, we remove stability, we make things more challenging. Of course you can lower, but that's not what we're talking about today. I'm sorry, this is not how using heavy bridges to build your glutes video. That's not what I do. I'm using the bridge to teach you how to lift heavy-ish stuff, and move well, right? So anyhow, so we remove points of contact. And the first place we can remove points of contact is obviously the feet, right? So as you lift, when you're up here, we can remove a point of contact, and the easiest one, the one I start, was the feet. But I don't go whole foot. I just go somewhat of the foot. Ouch, just smacked my head. Anyhow, so if you can see, look at my heel right here. I'm just going to lift the heel with the toes down. So I'm not going from 2 feet to only 1 foot. I'm going to from 2 feet to 1¼ foot, right? The ball of my feet's still on the ground. And I learned to use my abs, use my shoulders to maintain that position. Bring the heel down, and then come down, right? Obviously we do that on both sides. Now eventually, I can do that before I go up and work on coming up and down that staggered position. Obviously, eventually, we can go up and remove completely, put down, toes down, and work on being able to remove completely and maintain that position. Right? So we'll maintain that position. And at one point or another, we'll be able to just go up and down. And again, the way of making that easy, right, being able to do that quicker or more efficiently is by using your whole body, not just your leg, right? Use your abs, use your shoulders to be able to get into that position on just one leg. I like to keep this leg nice and tight. This is kind of like it's a gait pattern, right? Now we're talking, this looks like a lunge, right? One foot is flexion, 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 extension through here, right? Anyhow, obviously, that's not the only variation, right? It's not just removing points of contact in the legs. We can also remove points of contact in the upper body. And one of my favorite ways of doing that, right, is by starting doing the bridge off the hands, right? I'm still 2 hands down on the ground. It's not like I'm going to one hand yet, but it's hands, not just shoulders. Not shoulders, right? Just hands. So I start in what's normally referred like kind of like a crab walk position, right? And I press into the ground. I open up my shoulders, and I lift. And again, when I lift, I pull with the legs. I drive. I pull with the abs. I push back with the arms and the shoulders. And here, though, now that my head can move, now I'm working the hip hinge just like I would in a squat or a deadlift. So as my hips move, my head moves in the opposite direction. Hopefully at the same exact timing. And basically, as I've discussed when I'm talking about the squat and the deadlift, when the head and hips are moving in opposite directions, that means everything in between is pretty stable. Opposite directions but at the same time, right? With the same speed, right? And the same degree. So if the head stops moving, the hips should too, and vice versa. And neither one should move faster than the other one, because if they are, again, nothing that's not wrong, but it's telling you automatically that there is movement in the spine between those 2 points, right? And if we're practicing the bridge to learn how to not let that happen or learn to control that, then it's defeating the purpose, right? If we're allowing that to happen. Now, I barely talk about rotation in these videos, but this is a good place to start talking about rotation. And one way of adding rotation to the bridge, when we're doing that one leg variation, that's adding anti-rotation. You're preventing your hip from turning out, right? But that shoulder bridge really lends itself to a movement where you're gonna, I have no idea what this is called, right? So whatever, but it really lends itself to a movement where you are gonna, as you come up, you're gonna let your thoracic spine turn, a little bit lumbar, but it's mostly through a rib cage, and you're gonna put all your weight on one hand. You're still driving through the hips, trying to get that same straight position. You're gonna lift your hand up in the air. I don't care what you do with this hand. You can point it this way, whatever. But the point is, again, I am moving head and hips in opposite directions. But as I come up, I am turning to one side, loading one hand, and I have 3 points of contact instead of 2, therefore making it harder. It requires some rotation of the rib cage to be able to do so, right? And just making it slightly more challenging, or a lot more challenging depending on who you are. Now, so again, that would be adding an active rotation versus before with the one leg taking off the ground variations. It's kind of, you're just working rotation with stability. Here your spine actually has to turn, right? It is stable in the sagittal plane or back and forth, but it is moving in the transverse plane or turning, right? Or around, right? I'm sure I'll come up with something else in another video, but that's just kind of a snippet of how I think about the bridge. Of course, you can load your hips. You know, some people put 400 pounds on their hips and put their shoulders on a bench and just go to town on it to build the best, world's greatest glutes. That's just not the point of this particular video. Have fun. Do bridges. Learn to do them at least. It's not like the main exercise you'll do in your workouts for the most part, but it's a good thing to know how to do. Oh, it helps with the standing process too, right? It's part of standing, right? If I'm talking about the standing video, right, with that rotational setup, that's a bridge here, by the way. You're kind of driving into a shoulder, and that's a bridge. Put the hands down, that's another bridge. Like that. See, there's 2 bridges in that sideways standing process. Now I'm done. Have a good day.